Welcome to WebRTC Live. In WebRTC Live, we cover the latest technical topics and business use cases for WebRTC and live video. As always, this episode is brought to you by WebRTC.Ventures, leading integrators of WebRTC video into your custom application.
Welcome back to WebRTC Live. I'm your host, Aaron Symes, CEO and founder of WebRTC.Ventures. WebRTC.Ventures is a custom design and development agency focused on building live video applications. We're here to help you take your application live. You can learn more about us at WebRTC.Ventures. Thanks for joining us live today on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Welcome also to any of you watching a replay of today's event. For those of you with us live, you can ask questions throughout the stream by leaving a comment in whichever platform you're viewing this. For today's episode, I'm joined by Daniel Phillips. Danny is a longtime member of our team at WebRTC.Ventures, and we've worked together for over a decade now. At WebRTC.Ventures, Danny is our lead UI designer and has been designing video chat applications since 2015. Today, he will share some of that expertise around the unique aspects of designing for video chat applications. Thanks for joining me today, Danny.
Hey, hi, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Talk a little bit about design, which is a topic that doesn't get talked about enough in this format that WebRTC Live does. So I'm happy you guys are adding some styling in here for sure.
Well, you always bring style to the conversation, Danny, and I appreciate that about you. But you're absolutely right. I mean, most of the time when we're talking at WebRTC Live, as well as WebRTC conferences, and even more so, I'd say, like some of the telecom type of conferences that I often go to, design is a underappreciated and sometimes overlooked aspect of it. But it's incredibly important, right? Because we can have the technology, the scaling of our video application built out really well. We can have all of the the cloud infrastructure just perfect. But if somebody can't find the controls to mute or unmute themselves, for example, right? If the UX of the application is poor, if the UI is not well designed and compelling, then they're not going to use the application no matter how good the quality of the media server behind it, right? So this definitely is incredibly important. And so, yeah, I appreciate a lot the expertise that you bring into our team around design and branding and UI, and adds a lot of value to what we do for our clients. So in your presentation today, I'll start by just giving our viewers a little heads up. Most of what we'll see in this presentation is a starter kit that we've built based on top of the Amazon Chime SDK. So the UI in this application completely designed by Danny. And this is an internal code base that we have that we can use as a starter kit for our clients, which is great. But the design elements you'll talk about in this are things that we've done in a wide variety of technical stacks and use cases and other applications as well. Since we can't always show our client applications, this is a great way for us to demo it, is on top of this Amazon Chime starter kit that we have. So that's where we'll go today. Danny, why don't we go ahead and flip over to that and tell us about some must-have design elements.
Right. Something important about what you said, Aaron, is that everything that we're going to show here has been implemented, right? Not only in the Chime SDK, but also in all the other SDKs. So it's design elements that are, global to any application. We can definitely not only make those look nice, but actually work. So it's something important that sometimes gets overlooked when you're a designer and you forget that things need to be implemented, not just look nice. So we implement everything at WebRTC.Ventures.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
So today's presentation, we did a little brainstorming about some important features, not the obvious play or turn on, turn off your camera buttons, but some of other that maybe get overlooked but are really important in the user experience of the video applications. So the topics that we're going to talk about today are going to be the pre-call waiting room, speaker detection, virtual backgrounds and user settings a little bit. We're going to talk about creating functional layouts for multi-person calls on mobile, some error handling and messages that might get overlooked in when creating a video application, and some admin controls that you might want to have when you're controlling a session. Cool. So let's get right into it. Pre-call waiting room is the first topic we're going to talk about. Yeah, pretty much what's important here is for a user to come into your session. They get an invite or a URL, and they must understand that in this case, for this use case, they need permission to enter the call. So we want to collect some data from them. In this case, only their name, but it could be their email or phone or whatever we need. And the administrator will get a notification that this person is in the waiting room. But in what we want to show here is that the person needs to understand what's going on. And what's important about the waiting room is that they know somebody's waiting for them, and also they can control the session on their side. So here they can mute themselves, they can change cameras, they can do what we call a network test or a pre-test. So they can check that their internet, their speaker, and their camera is working correctly. And then when they submit, they enter the meeting, they would get a waiting sort of signal with an animation where they can see that something's happening. Someone is on the other side, and they're going to be let into the meeting soon. So that's super important. So a user doesn't feel like something's wrong with the application, or their internet is not working, or whatever. Something might be going wrong. We want them to feel secure about what the next step is going to be, and that they're going to be let into the application or the call very soon. Yeah, so that's what I have. I don't know if you have any comments about pre-call.
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly important part. The diagnostics part that you're showing here is really important too, because we want to make sure that the users of our application understand any network constraints that they're under, right? I'm in a home office right now. Danny, you're in a hotel room traveling, right? There may be differences in our connection. And if we were to have any quality problems in this call, the natural instinct for both of us would be to kind of blame the tool, right? But maybe not for you and I, because we know how these things are built, but for your typical user, they're going to blame the tool first. But it's really important that if they are on a poor connection at the coffee shop, at the hotel, connected, tethering to their mobile device, whatever the case may be, that you're kind of giving them that heads up even before they go into the conversation. And depending on how you build this technically too, there may be some other aspects that come into this. For example, sometimes a CPaaS provider might recommend that you turn off your video or do that for you automatically during a call. We'll probably talk about that more with like error handling too, but that's something that you can detect in the pre-call setup. The other, I think waiting rooms are also a really underutilized aspect of WebRTC applications, that the way you use this could vary a lot on your use case. The most obvious use case of these pages is kind of the hair check, as I've heard some people call it, of making sure that your camera works and that you look okay in it. But depending on your use case, there's a lot more that you could do with this space as well. Like I always think, we had a telehealth client who had some promotional videos or educational videos that could be played here. That was really valuable for their use case. Kind of like, when you think about sitting in a doctor's office in real life, oftentimes there's a TV with some health education videos playing, for example. And then also messaging between this. So, Dana, you mentioned the administrator, the person, like the host of the conversation, getting a message that someone's in the waiting room, they've arrived, they're on the way, maybe admitting them in to that call. That's really important. So the view of this may be different for the guest as well as the host, but also allowing messaging between that. So again, using telehealth as an example, but this could apply in many use cases. being able to, for the medical professional to be able to send a message that says, "Hey, I'm running late. I'll be there in a few minutes," and so that's shown on the patient's waiting view, right? So that's something you could build in here too that could be really helpful. I've seen that in more generic meeting tool use cases too. For example, the Amazon Chime desktop tool does have a way to do that. When I've been waiting for somebody in a call, I've gotten messages from them through the tool that said, I'll be there in 5 minutes running late. That's really helpful to know that, they didn't forget the call. They're on their way, right? So so many different things you can do in this waiting room type of scenario. I think it's super important.
Yeah, correct. We've built that sort of chat style conversations in waiting rooms before too, and I think it's definitely a great way to add a little extra feature to the waiting room and be able to communicate with the user without actually letting them into the session. So, great point. Next topic that we want to talk a bit about was the speaker detection, and this is more through a UI view, right? So here we have a call with 5 people, and there's no way for us. This is a perfectly useful call, and we can see and we can hear the others, but there are some small details that we could add to make this better. And the way we've done it here for Starter Kit is we've added a green border around the person who's talking at the moment. So here, Crystal is the one talking, but you can see up on the right that we also added an icon for microphone and cameras to see who's muted and who isn't muted. And then we also added a green bar that reflects the voice of the user. So this would actually be sort of animating with the person's speech. So this is another way to show, going from this that you don't really know who's speaking, or if someone has their mic on and it's on a loud, background, we might not really understand what's happening, but here we kind of get a better idea of what's going on in the meeting. So it's a small detail or 2 small details that make a huge difference for the user to really have a better user experience when in a larger group call.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll also
The other thing this makes me think of, Danny, is when you're in a group call like this and somebody's, dog is barking in the background. How many times have we been in that sort of situation where you say, "Hey, could you mute yourself right now? We're hearing something in your background." Without these sort of indicators, you don't necessarily know which person that's coming from, right? So it makes it easier to deal with that. You can even sort of, DM that person separately and ask them to mute themselves. Or if you're the moderator of a chat and you want to mute them, you know who you need to mute, that sort of thing.
Yeah. We have a use case also for muting, so we'll look at that in a little bit. But yeah, it works perfect for the admin to see who's mic was left unmuted and they're disturbing the call, so they can do some muting from an administrator permission point. Cool. Let's continue. The next topic that I think it's one of the coolest ones that we have today is user settings and being able to add virtual backgrounds on a WebRTC application. So we've already seen this before in Zoom, right, calls. It's probably where it's been more popular, but here I'm highlighting, so in this starter kit, we have like this little 3 dots where we can access the call settings. And when you go into call settings pop up, you have different controls that you can change. In our case with Amazon Chime, we have speaker detection, so we can change the speakers and we can change the microphone, and then we can also change the video or the camera that we're using. But we've also implemented video backgrounds where we can actually change between a blurred background or an image. So here I am selecting a blurred image, or here I'm selecting an image. So this is another really cool feature that is being used more and more, and depending on the use case, it's really important. And it's something that can be definitely added in a WebRTC application. It doesn't have to be a native app to have sort of this feature that you would think it's a little bit more, I don't know, maybe harder to implement, or it needs more computer power or something like that. It can be done in browser. And so the other background that people I think is going to be a little bit more common, and we have some clients that have used this, is to add a background that has been preset, from the video or the application, the company that's using the application, with a branded background, right? So if this was a WebRTC application that we use, for talking to clients, we could create a background and add it into the applications so that all of our agents use it, and it's a branded background. So it doesn't matter where the agent, let's say, is taking a call, they can just add this virtual background with branded content, like our logo, or if we had another idea of a background that we wanted to use. And it gives a more consistent view to our clients. So this is another cool use case of adding virtual backgrounds to a call application.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that you and I were talking about prior to going live about this. When we have a client in the ed tech space, we can't name them by name yet, but hopefully can soon. And this is a feature that's really important to them, because you have both teachers and students in the chat, basically. And so, definitely in education, and when you're dealing with people under the age of 18 with minors, it's, very understandable. You want to have some privacy built in for them. And so having virtual backgrounds or blurring or ability to turn off cameras, all those things can be really important in that use case for privacy and security reasons. I hadn't thought about the branded background side, which in that case, that client is using that for the instructors as well, right? So kind of as you described. So I thought that was a cool use case for it, and I agree with you. I think a lot of possibilities for that as well. By the way, I just want to note a comment from one of our viewers asking where to find the recording for this. Appreciate you watching this live, and glad to see you're working on a WebRTC project in your company and learning more. This will be archived on our YouTube channel for WebRTC.Ventures. So you can always find all past episodes of WebRTC Live on our YouTube channel, as well as blog posts about them a few days after each episode up on the WebRTC.Ventures blog also.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think another cool use case for this would be, like, let's say a fintech company that has, agents, and they want to make sure that there is a consistency between agencies. So if they're working remote, it doesn't matter what their house looks like, or their room, their office, they can all have a consistent background. And it's definitely better for a user to feel sort of that. It gives it a more elegant kind of feeling to a call. Cool. So let's continue to the next subject. We talked a little bit about audio detection or speaker detection for larger groups of in a call. So we wanted to sort of show what a layout for a mobile scenario would be with larger groups. We usually use our mobile for like one-on-one calls, and it's a lot easier to create layouts for 2 or 3 people. But when there's more, like 5, 10, or even more, it's tricky with the small screens. So the way that we've designed this on our Chime SDK is we've added a thumb sort of carousel at the bottom, where you could scroll horizontally to view everyone in the call. In this case here on the design, it's just the 5 people, but if we had more people, they all stack horizontally at the bottom, and you could scroll horizontally to view everyone that's on the call. And then when the speaker is detected, the main video changes with the person who's speaking. So that's something really cool. So even if somebody is sort of hidden on the scroll bar at the bottom, they would appear at the top, and they would be prioritized in the call because they're the one that are speaking at the moment. So yeah, there is definitely some more technical aspects into adding this, but we've been able to do it in a couple projects, and it works great. And it definitely improves the user experiences in mobile when having a larger group of people in the call. Yeah, so pretty much this is the solution that we came up with, and it's really worked really good. So.
I think this is another great example of where you need to think about both your technical architecture and the design of the application at the same time, because you'll certainly think about things like this when you're thinking about scaling the application or scaling the size of conversations that you permit in a video chat application. You'll think about, are people on desktop? Are they on mobile? Because mobile will tend to have more constraints on how many videos you want to show at once, and it makes an impact on how you do that design. You may even want that design for a multi-user meeting to look different on desktop versus mobile in terms of how many videos you permit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about those things for those different audiences within even the same call really requires thinking about it from both the technical and the design aspects of it. They go hand in hand for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mobile definitely brings in more difficulties to both design and development, but yeah, there are definitely always ways to design around that and make the experience as fun and as good as on web. So yeah, definitely important to always keep mobile in your in your list of things to do when creating an app. So, and this is probably one of the most difficult challenges, is to compact a bunch of people that are trying to talk to each other with their camera on. So cool. Let's see, next topic. Error handling and messages. It's also something that sometimes gets pushed to the end of the development cycle, and it's definitely something that is super important for users. And so we have some use cases here that I want to talk about. So the first one in the pre-call, you talked a little bit about this, is when somebody doesn't have their browser permissions for video and audio, we need to let them know what's happening, and we need to guide them to fixing this issue. Browsers have changed the way they do this, and we've had to change our design and UX throughout the years, because browsers change the way they allow users to manage their settings. So I remember before we used to have like an arrow pointing to one side or the other of the browser, depending if they were on Firefox or Chrome or Safari. But I think browsers tend to unify some of these settings for users. So this is what we're using now. It's right now there's a little icon, the lock icon on the browser where you find your permissions. So yeah, this is definitely something that's important. And here is not only an error message, but you're also seeing that the microphone and camera icons are red. So it helps the user understand sort of where the error is, even without reading the text. You can see, a warning sign and a red icon, and you immediately understand what this is about. So you can go and fix it without even reading the message. So
it's a good point too about how this has changed over time and across different browsers. I mean, there was also a time not so long ago when one of the error messages you had to build in was that, sorry, you're in Safari, and Safari doesn't support WebRTC. Now that's no longer a problem, thankfully, but still you do have to think about browser specific concerns, and it's still there are still differences between the browsers about how you do re-enable or enable camera and microphone access within that browser. So for instance, this comes up too outside of the design of the application, but also supportability of the application. Like when we build an application for our clients, we have to factor those things into the design, but then also we're often providing some guidance to the customer support team of the client about when users contact them about a problem they're having. And the most common problem might be, I accidentally didn't allow cameras for this site. How do I turn that back on? Where do I go in my browser settings, right? And since video may be something new to that client in the browser, their customer support agents may not know how to do that. So part of what we're providing with that application to them is some guidance on how to handle those sorts of support issues when they come up. So it's important in the design as well as in the support of the application as well. Daniel, let's pause there for just a moment. We're going to take a very quick ad break. We'll be back in less than a minute with Daniel Phillips, Senior Designer at WebRTC.Ventures, talking more about must-have elements of design for successful video applications. And when we come back, by the way, too, we'll also get to your questions. So this is a great time to put a question in the comments of whatever tool you're watching this live in, and we'll be happy to take that right after the ad break.
Building custom WebRTC video applications is hard, but your go-live doesn't have to be stressful.
We thought we were ready to launch our video application, but we discovered it's a lot harder than we thought. Live video applications are not like building other web or mobile apps. Our team worked hard out there today, but we just didn't have all the right pieces. I'll tell you what we should have done. We should have brought in the live video experts from WebRTC.Ventures.
If you're building a live video application, then trust the experts at WebRTC.Ventures to help you design, build, test, deploy, and manage your custom-built application, or integrate live video into your existing application. Contact us today at WebRTC.Ventures.
All right, we're back on WebRTC Live with Danny Phillips from our team at WebRTC.Ventures talking about must-have design elements for video applications. First, a little shout out here from Brad, who couldn't stay for the rest of it, but looking forward to the recording. Thank you, Brad, for joining us. And a reminder to all of you that this will be available on our YouTube channel for WebRTC.Ventures. So you can go back and check it out there anytime. Danny, we also have a question from Jose, who points out that accessibility is crucial in today's digital landscape. How can designers ensure that video applications are accessible to users with disabilities? What role does design play in this? So what are your thoughts on accessibility in design in general and specifically to video applications?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we actually have a use case right now where we're implementing themes within the application to allow for colorblind users. So what we created is a set of different themes where so we have a theme for green colorblind, red colorblind, blue colorblind, right? So as a colorblind, you can choose with a theme that best adapts to your disability or sight, and that way makes the application accessible completely, right? Because then we're used to having green and red as yes or no, or like a success or warning kind of colors, but these don't work great for people with color blindness. So we've added these themes that change those highlight colors, and it completely changes the way somebody with a color blindness use the application, and they can understand it a lot better. So it's definitely a great question. It's something that we are definitely looking into and also implementing in our projects.
Yeah, that's a great point, Danny, and a great question, Jose. The other aspect, I think, where accessibility comes in video applications and any sort of voice spoken application too is a great way to great opportunity, great reason to integrate AI into your application. So for example, we partner with Symbol AI. We can use their APIs for live live transcripts, live captioning on a video conversation, and then also providing written transcripts after the conversation. So that's certainly something for those who are hearing impaired to still be able to join the conversation and to be able to use those captions. So symbolize a great option for us to use in those sorts of scenarios. There are lots of ways that you can do that sort of thing too. And then also at the end of today's episode, I'm actually going to play a video that I recorded at the Voice and AI Summit in Washington, D.C. just about 2 weeks ago. And you might want to stick around for that, because there is a neat application that I saw from Estee Lauder that I'll talk about in that video, that talks about helping visually impaired people use a video, voice, and AI application for applying makeup and giving them advice on applying that makeup. So that was a really innovative and interesting example of a video application being used to help visually impaired customers use a product, which I thought was really cool. So accessibility is incredibly important and needs to be factored in as well. So thank you. All right, Daniel, let's go back to your presentation for a couple more tips.
Yeah, so we were talking about some use cases for error handling and messages. So the next one that we've added here is alerts for internet connection problems, right? So this is definitely super important for a video and audio application that runs on the web, is to let the user know if their internet is not good, and without internet, the call is not possible. So adding a visual message to the user to let them know, oh, your internet is running slow. Maybe you can understand that, go change the Wi-Fi you're connected to, or connect to your phone's hotspot or whatever to improve the internet and make sure you're able to connect to continue with the call. So here are two options. So one is showing the user what's happening, with a big message at the bottom, and then the other is to let the other people in the chat know what's happening. So we added a little message underneath their name. So in this case, me as an admin, I'm in the chat with Crystal, and I can see that her connection is not great. So I can, prompt her to go change the connection and then come back to the call, for example, or lets me understand what's sort of happening if there's any type of troubles with the conversation we're trying to have. So this is definitely something that is very important for this type of application. And and the last one here for the error calling is definitely for the error handling and messages, is always letting know your user that they're exiting a meeting, right? When they want to click that hang up button, we need to let them know that they're going to click out. This could have a big impact if you're the admin, and if you're exiting a meeting and you're closing the meeting for everyone in the room. So this is very important. We could add that text here also, letting the user know, oh, you're the admin. If you log out now, or if you cancel the call, the meeting is going to be canceled for everyone in it. So this is another super important message that needs to be added into your application for sure. And you have any comments on
just one other thought too, thinking about another common error message that we might display to users in an application would be it looks like you're talking, but you're on mute error message, right? Because we've all muted ourselves and then forgotten to unmute before we speak again. And so same concept as speaker detection that you talked about earlier, Danny, knowing which users are speaking so that we can highlight their video for others to know who's speaking. Same sort of code could be used also to look at if you're speaking but you're muted, and giving you a heads up about that before your colleagues in the meeting have to say the classic lines of, I think you're on mute still.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens to me every day when using Zoom.
Right.
Yeah,
Other than "Can
yeah,
you hear me now?" It's the like second most commonly said thing in any virtual meeting.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Okay, then the last little point that we want to talk about is admin controls. So this is role specific. We would create a role for your application, roles for your application, where the admin will have special controls. So yeah, one of the most important ones is to allow people to come into the application. So in our Chime SDK starter kit, we have two ways for you to allow for someone to come in. Because this sidebar, we haven't shown it here, but this sidebar is collapsible. So if this sidebar was to be closed, you wouldn't be able to see these little messages that appear next to the name in the participants panel. So we added the little bubble that says you in this case, Aaron, is trying to connect, so I can approve or deny them from entering. And then also, if I open the participants panel, I can just allow or deny someone that wants to enter the call. So this is something that is obviously only the owner of the call should be able to perform. So it'd be role based to the admin. In this case, I'm the admin for this design. Next would be, we talked about this one before, when we have speaker detection and we can understand whose audio is coming in, we can, as an admin, we can give them permission to go in and mute that person. So like you said, maybe somebody, maybe got up and left the audio on and their dog's barking and is, making it difficult for the rest of the team to have a pleasant conversation, then an admin can come in and force mute that user. That is also something that we implemented. And I think the last slide that we have for today, which is also super important, is once you created a meeting, you should be able to invite people into that meeting, even if you're in the meeting. So in this case, we have the invite more participants down at the bottom on your participants panel. And that brings up a pop-up and it gives you different options to invite someone in. So you can, in this case, add emails. We've also implemented this with SMS messages, where instead of an email input, you would add phone numbers. And you can also copy the URL to the meeting with just a one click. And then when you send the invites, that would send emails or SMS to your invitees. So this is also something that is usually admin specific and is super important to add into your application.
Absolutely. And as you said,
yeah,
can be multimodal, different communication channels there, text, or you could also have dial-in phone numbers built in for this as well. So those are all things that we might be able to build into a client application, depending on their use case. And a lot of these features, the exact way that you'll implement these will be dependent on the use case. You talked about admins being able to mute others, and that was something interesting I noticed in a tool we use frequently recently. So like in these live broadcasts for WebRTC Live, we're using StreamYard, and then I also have a separate podcast called the Scaling Tech Podcast, and we use Zencaster for that, very popular podcast recording tool. And one of the things I noticed in using that was that my co-host David Alfaro and I were recording with a guest, and there was some background noise going on in David's background. So I, as the admin in the conversation, I muted him to hide that construction noise for a minute while our guest was speaking, right? Because I didn't want it to affect the recording. What I didn't realize, it was the first time I tried to do that, in the way that their tool was implemented, at least at that time, I could mute someone else in the call, but I couldn't unmute them. And that created an awkward situation that, maybe there was a reason they thought to build it that way that I hadn't considered. But when he started to speak again, he didn't know I had muted him. there maybe had not been something in the UI that told him I had muted him. So he just started speaking, and we had to then say those, the classic line, I think you're on mute. Except in this case, I had to also admit to him, I put you on mute. Sorry about that. Unmute yourself, please, right? So that would have been, I think in that particular use case, if you're allowing an admin to mute someone, you should also allow them to unmute them. So for me, at least in that situation, certainly that was the more intuitive design. But maybe there's other situations where you don't want that to happen, or you don't want to be able to mute other people at all. So this is something where it's really important to think about who's using your application. Don't just think about an application as a generic meeting tool and that the functionality of it should be the same as some off-the-shelf meeting tool. You can really improve the whole workflow for your users if you think about these unique cases that they might use it. So Danny, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you bringing these tips together. Like you said at the beginning, a lot of people don't think about this enough. So I really appreciate that you think about it a lot. It's really important to our clients. It's really important to our work at WebRTC Ventures, and the experience that you have with working on these design aspects across so many clients is definitely invaluable to the work that we do, and a good reason for people to work with a company like ours, frankly, that has a lot of experience in doing this across a wide variety of use cases and clients, because we can help you apply those best practices to it. And also do just want to mention again, the design screens that we were showing today. Well, first of all, my photo was plastered in those way too much, as you did warn me, Danny. Thankfully, it was a headshot that you took. In addition to being an excellent designer, you're also an excellent photographer. And Mariana, our COO, and myself show up in a lot of those screenshots. But that is our Amazon Chime SDK starter kit that we can use as a starter kit for your clients. If you liked what you saw here and want to use that as the basis for an application you're building, just reach out to us at WebRTC.ventures, team at WebRTC.ventures, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. But regardless of the application that you're being built, these are design elements you can incorporate into it, or we can do for you as well. I want to close with just one last topic, Danny. Talk a little bit about like the sidebars that you might have. You showed in there where the list of participants was in the sidebar in our starter kit, and how that could be hidden. And so you had the like approve, deny for someone to enter, showing when that sidebar was hidden, which was a really good design element to have. First question, do you think, a sidebar like that with text chat or participants in it, should it always start visible in a call or hidden, or do you have a strong design preference on that, or does it depend on the use case?
Yeah, definitely depends, but I think 90% of the time is at least on everything that we've developed, it's always shown first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if I think that's more of a UX thing, but if it's close when you start a conversation, it can be kind of hidden. And because a user can easily close it, then it's sort of a way to tell the user, if it's their first time in the application, at least, oh, we have this sidebar here. Yeah, if you don't like it, you can close it. But I think yeah, but it's here. So I think it is important to show it, at least once, and then have your user make the decision if they want to close it or not. So that would be my preference.
Yeah, that makes sense. And depending on your use case, it may be showing a lot of other things. And here again, I'm thinking about like in a contact center situation where another thing you might use a sidebar like that for is integration of AI. And for example, if I mentioned symbol AI earlier, if you have like real-time transcription of a call going on, or topic detection, or you've got an agent assistant. AI agent assist application that's pulling up information for you automatically about the customer you're speaking with, for example. Those are all things you're going to show on that sidebar that are only going to be visible to the contact center agent, not to the customer that they're speaking with. And that might be a scenario where for that agent, that sidebar is always there. Maybe you can't minimize it, but but wouldn't be visible at all to the other participants. So again, it's the placement, the usage of these things may vary in terms of layouts, desktop versus mobile. They may vary for individual users in the call, depending on their role, or they just may vary across the application for your use case. So lots of things to consider here when building your custom video chat application. So,
yep, I think that's also important to mention that it will also vary on a mobile. So, like you said, when you come in, does it have to be shown on a mobile? You're gonna have to hide it for sure. And so it would be opposite on the mobile because the video is obviously the most important thing.
right.
But yeah, it's also something that is important to keep in mind is that your users are eventually going to open your application on a cell phone. And if you decide that the chat is always going to be visible, well, remember you have mobile, so you're not going to be able to have both. So yeah, we need to make sure we're flexible for all use cases.
Yep. And then tablets being another use case too, where you may have a different layout that, would affect how you display users. Probably going to be more similar to the desktop, but not identical. So.
Right.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks again for joining us, Danny. Really appreciate all of your expertise and sharing that with our viewers today on WebRTC Live.
Yeah, great to be here. Hope to come back soon and talk more about design.
Absolutely. Always, for sure. All right. Well, as always, this video will be available on the WebRTC.Ventures YouTube channel, as well as on our blog at WebRTC.Ventures. In October, I'll be speaking at TAD Summit in Paris and moderating a panel on AI and communication applications. And at the end of November, I'll also be attending the AWS reInvent conference in Las Vegas. If you'll be at any of those and want to meet in person, just email team@webrtc.ventures to contact us and set up a time. Our next episode will be Thursday, October 9th. It's going to be a lot earlier than usual at 8:25 a.m. Eastern. Why that weird time? Because we'll be broadcasting live a voice and AI panel from TAD Summit in Paris, France. So broadcasting live from there. So please join us for that. Like all of our conversations, that will also be recorded and archived on our YouTube channel as well as on the blog at WebRTC.Ventures. To find out more about upcoming episodes, follow us on social media at WebRTC.Ventures. Subscribe to us on Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, and go to WebRTC.Ventures and join our email list. As we close out today, I'm going to play an update video that I recorded at the Voice and AI conferences in Washington, D.C. In the beginning of September. If you want to learn more about my experiences at that conference, this video will give you some highlights. If you want to learn more about the companies in that video, you can also check out our blog at WebRTC.Ventures, where there's a longer form discussion of that conference. It was really interesting, a lot of great insights for me, and that I try to share with you in that video about the intersection of AI, voice, and video in enterprise applications. So thanks for joining us today. Let's make it live. Hey, Aaron Sun from WebRTC.Ventures, CEO and founder. Bringing you a little video update here from the Voice and AI conference in Washington, D.C. Here at this for a couple of days. It's been a really interesting conference so far, basically talking all about what was called the Fifth Industrial Revolution in a keynote this morning by Veritone. It was interesting watching that. For me, realizing that even in my relatively young, in quote, age, I've lived through 3 different of those 5 industrial revolutions now, I guess you could say. Technically kind of born, I guess, around the time of the initial computer digital revolution, definitely working professionally during the internet revolution, and now the generative AI revolution being the 5th industrial revolution, 3rd in my lifetime. So that's pretty wild to think about. The Voice and AI conference was previously called the Voice Summit. I was here last year, organized by Modev Group, founded by Pete Erickson. really great conference, actually. Many years ago, back when I was first just starting to work with WebRTC, I think even before we rebranded as WebRTC.Ventures, spoke about WebRTC at a MoDev, Mobile Development Meetup here in DC that Pete organized. Really cool to see how this conference has grown. The addition of AI to the voice conference, makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of voice applications certainly use AI, so a very natural addition to the topics here. Lots of generative AI, conversational AI companies here. We co-hosted with our friends at Vonage a happy hour last night, the first evening prior to the big day of the conference. That was a lot of fun over at L'Oreal Plaza. It's sangria and margaritas and cervezas, and got to talk to a lot of great people about the conversational AI, generative AI applications that they're building. That was really interesting. Also been talking a lot with different partners here at the conference. So a number of our partners are here. Spent some time with the Amazon Chime SDK team is here. They're also doing a panel discussion here. Vonage, got to check out a chatbot at the SignalWire booth. We've done some work with them recently. But mainly here meeting and learning from other AI vendors in the space. And one of the keynote speakers, Kim Reese from JP Morgan, talked about like 3 different ways you could build or 3 different types perhaps of AI application. First, where AI is under the hood, so things like fraud protection in the banking that you know are there, but you may not even realize it. AI woven into the product, and where AI is the product. And that kind of got me thinking about our place in the ecosystem at WebRTC.Ventures, and we're in that AI woven into the product. So we're here to build your video and voice communication applications, and then we're also frequently weaving in AI into those. Certainly done lots of call transcription and call summary type of work. That was sort of the first, most natural place that you would see AI coming into a voice and video application. But now also working with conversational AI and integrating that into the workflow. We're doing more work with NLX.ai. One example there. They have a great conversational AI platform using that. We'll be doing more work with their customers, talking more about that in the future. And in particular, we're interested in cases where you have conversational AI, chat with a chatbot that eventually, there's some situations where you escalate that to a human agent, and that's where our expertise in video and voice and integration of those via WebRTC into the contact center makes a lot of sense. A lot of interesting use cases that seeing and learning about here. One of the other keynote presentations that was really interesting for me, use case I'd never heard about or thought of, a representative from Estee Lauder talking about their voice makeup assistant, which is a really interesting application that she showed a demo of, where to help basically blind or low sight individuals apply makeup. So it's using the camera to watch them apply the makeup, using voice commands to control the app, and AI to help determine if they've applied lipstick correctly or not, and give them advice on that. And it was really interesting, really cool example of the combination of all of these technologies of voice and video and AI, and in a way that really opens up something to an underserved market, in this case blind and low sight individuals. So that was a really cool example of the creative, innovative ways that these technologies can be used together. Certainly another interesting vendor here I mentioned that had a keynote is Veritone, and this whole concept of synthetic voices and digital humans and avatars is really interesting to me. Our CTO Alberto put up a blog post on WebRTC.Ventures recently about using an open source avatar API with his voice, with a human voice. But with like Veritone, you can train a model, a synthetic voice based on your voice. So I had a chance to do that today. About 5 or 10 minutes I spent in a recording booth, reading a script that they gave me. And in a week or so, they'll give me a sample of what my synthetic voice would be like, which is pretty cool. I don't know what I'm really going to use that for, other than experiment in my own ego, I guess. But it's interesting to me to kind of see how that's done and learn about these technologies, because we expect to see more of that being done in our type of work, where in the contact center, if you're interacting with a conversational AI bot, that there's an avatar and voice commands being used with that. So if you're interested in learning more about the integration of voice and video and AI, well, one thing you can do is I'll be moderating a panel on that at TAD Summit in Paris next month in October, so you can certainly join me in Paris and attend that panel. But also you could just visit us at WebRTC.ventures. We'd be happy to talk to you more about your unique application and how to combine voice, video, and AI together. So check us out at WebRTC.ventures.
Thanks for joining us for WebRTC Live. Visit our website at WebRTC.ventures to learn more about our custom design and development services, and to learn more about upcoming episodes of WebRTC Live.